Back again because I like pain and attention and arguing. I'm about to find a way to make every One Piece movie canon. Real quick spoiler alert for anybody out there, especially once we start talking about the later movies. For all the people complaining about how I used too many what if timelines the last time I did this for a series, I'm only limiting myself to 3. All right, everything else I'm gonna have to make work with the actual story. Is it possible? We got 13 movies because we're not doing movies 8 and 9 because they're literally just the retellings of arcs that already happened. That also can only take place in alternate timelines because why are Robin and Frankie at Drum Island, for example? With that being said, let's just get straight into it. Leave a like, please. Please! Kicking things off with a fairly easy one. The only confirmed Straw Hat crew members we have in this movie are Zoro, Nami, Usopp, and Luffy, which means that this would obviously have to take place before the Baratier arc because Sanji isn't here. Definitely after Syrup Village though, because once again Usopp is here and we have the Going Merry as well. Specifically after when Usopp draws the Straw Hat Jolly Roger for the first time in chapter 42. Because we see it right here. It took the Straw Hats days to sail to Baratier from Syrup Village. Plenty of time to get ambushed by some pirates led by a guy that looks like the fusion of Don Krieg, Shuzo from that one filler, and Beast from the Beauty and the Beast. Only problem is that we only hear of this day sailing period from Johnny. He's the one who tells the crew how far away from the Baratier they are, which means that we can't even use that day sailing period because then Johnny and Yosuke would then be in this movie. The only window of time that we have to work with here would have to be that indistinct, unspecified period of time that passes from the moment the Jolly Roger is made to when they find Johnny and Yosuke stranded at sea. The manga makes it seem like it's not that long of a time because, you know, this is all happening in the same chapter. The Jolly Roger finding Johnny and Yosuke, like the whole thing pretty much. But the anime's interpretation of this travel period was long enough for them to deem it appropriate to do the Gaimon arc here, right, instead of before Syrup Village like it happens in the manga. Basically what I'm saying is that this one panel could easily be like at least a day or two. This movie could totally happen immediately after anime episode 18. That's the episode where Usopp makes the Jolly Roger and everyone meets Gaimon. As for the manga, again, this whole thing could simply take place in that one passage of time panel that we don't see what's going on. And then immediately after this movie, Johnny and Yosuke can show up. It is kind of suspicious that Luffy isn't ever hungry at all on this trip to the Baratier, right? Especially if we're using the anime's interpretation of events that adds a whole extra day of sailing because of the Gaimon thing. There's no way Luffy's not getting hungry. I feel like this movie explains why. As for why Luffy tells Full Body at the Baratier that they only made their Jolly Roger the day before, that kind of ruins the whole timeline. I mean, be honest. I mean, do you really trust Luffy's perception of time? Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, the first movie with the core 5 Straw Hats. So, you know, obviously this would have to take place after Baratier, but also after Arlong Park as well, the climax of the entire East Blue saga. Why? Because the Baratier arc, as we all know, or I hope so by this point, that ends with Nami stealing the Going Merry and abandoning the crew. So, you know, how would they be able to do this movie? If that was a spoiler for you, then that's a damn shame. What's wrong with you? From Kokoyashi Village to Logue Town, again, there's no exact length of time given to us. However, we can infer that it had to have been at least a day. Why? Because of the newspaper. They were on the Going Merry when they got the newspaper that had Luffy's first big bounty on it. And the newspaper, at least in our world, the newspaper run is usually a morning thing, right? When they departed from Kokoyashi Village, it was already well into the daytime. If it was Newsday, they would have got it back on Kokoyashi. You know what I'm saying? So to me, this moment happens the following day. Again, in the manga, like they kind of fast travel. Like it feels like Logue Town was right around the corner. But in the anime, we literally in this one episode see everybody going to bed at one point. Again, supports my claim that this trip had to have taken at least a day or two. At any point during that day or two, I can totally see Nami wanting to, you know, just take a moment to relax on one of these nearby beaches surrounding Kokoyashi, especially after this very emotionally taxing incident that she was just a part of. This is when the Merry can get hijacked and the events of this movie can take place. Sometime around episode 46 or 47, this movie could be what the Straw Hats are doing in real time while we, the audience, are over here being shown this adaptation of the Buggy cover story instead. The only thing that's making this still a little bit unbelievable is that all the Straw Hats get beat up pretty badly in this movie, like especially Sanji. So I don't know, maybe like add another day for recovery before they get to Logtown, right? Because they didn't have no scratches when they showed up there. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it is a cartoon. This movie is a little bit tricky, mainly because, and this is actually something I just realized, we never really get any moments where it's just the original 6 pre-Alabasta crew sailing together, just them. This is because the Straw Hats meet Vivi at Whiskey Peak before they meet Chopper, who is the next member of the crew. Vivi, of course, sails with them all the way to Alabasta, and then at the end of that whole thing at Alabasta, Robin joins the crew, and she's not in this movie, which means that this movie has to take place before Alabasta. But then if that's the case, then where are Vivi and Karu at? Thankfully, this movie only takes place across one full day. It's not like some huge world-altering event or anything, just a slight excursion. I was trying to come up with all sorts of excuses to get Vivi and Karu off the ship for a day, man. Like maybe Vivi could be off doing some sort of undercover investigating or something, you know, about Baroque works on the random island somewhere, or maybe just trying to get some more info on the current political situation back in Alabasta. But honestly, I think I have a better idea. What if Robin just waited out her time a little bit longer as a stowaway before asking to join the crew? She wasn't hiding on the ship for that long, but she did say herself that it took them a while to notice her. This movie does begin with the Straw Hats chilling in the cabin of the Going Merry, where Robin is supposed to be hiding, which kind of messes up this theory a little bit, but stick with me now. She did spend the majority of her life on the run as an assassin. I'm sure she could find plenty of other ways of keeping herself hidden. Maybe she's already a part of the crew in this movie and just remains off screen the entire time, because this would still be like peak introverted standoffish Robin. Totally in character for her. It doesn't really affect the story at all, so I'm not counting it as an alternate timeline. Regardless of if she's introduced herself to the crew or not, by this point, she would definitely have to be on the ship somewhere. After that underwater volcano thing sent the Mary flying across the entire island, I bet she probably started second guessing her decision. If you ask me, this movie makes perfect sense right after episode 129 in the anime. I've always kind of treated this movie as a prequel to G8. Not only is Navarone directly mentioned in this movie, the commanding Marine in charge of the pursuit of the Straw Hats at the beginning and at the end of the movie is Lieutenant Commander Drake, Vice Admiral Jonathan's right-hand man. If you know, you know. Robin is finally an official member of the crew in this movie, and lucky for me, there was plenty of downtime between Alabasta and Jaya, so much so that the anime has 13 filler episodes where multiple days go by and the Straw Hats visit various different islands. This movie could happen at any time during this period. I really like how the Rulika Island arc with the whole ship graveyard thing kind of ties into the ship falling from the sky, kicking off the whole Skypiea arc, kind of like a red herring explanation for where the ship came from. You know, if you didn't read the manga already. So I'm gonna put Dead End Adventure before that, somewhere during that section of episodes where all the crewmates get their own individual stories. Most likely on that same day as the surprisingly emotional Nami episode that I really enjoy, episode 132. That whole day, they literally was just sailing around doing nothing. And also a huge storm happens towards the end of that episode, which could explain why the sea is so tumultuous for a lot of this movie. Like, for whatever reason, the weather is just on one in this movie. The only thing about this movie that's really holding it back from it making sense is the fact that the Straw Hats, or at least Usopp, is already aware of Luffy's new bounty post Alabasta. This kind of also showed up at the end of the last movie, but I'll just ignore that for now. This is something that Luffy doesn't find out about until he first meets Blackbeard at Jaya, where Blackbeard is threatening to claim Luffy's bounty. I swear, if it wasn't for this 10-second gag here of Usopp tearing down Luffy's bounty in this, quite frankly, futile attempt at preserving their anonymity, this could easily go anywhere during that filler rest phase between Alabasta and Skypiea, just like Dead End Adventure. And actually, I think it will. Why? Because none of these movies can logically take place after Skypiea for two reasons. First, because Drake is in this movie. No, not that one. Or that one. Once again, which tells me that this movie has to come before G8, because why else would Drake still be giving a shit about the Straw Hats? Not only is the G8 arc after Skypiea, but this movie also kind of feels like just because Drake is here, this does kind of feel like a direct sequel to Dead End Adventure. My second reason is because the Going Merry should be way more busted up than this. In this movie, it looks damn near mint condition. I can overlook a few missing metal patches here and there, right? The Merry first started sporting some small bandages after Alabasta that weren't there in the previous two movies. But again, it's not that important. It's really just a cosmetic thing. It's kind of like complaining about Luffy being in a different outfit. It doesn't matter. But having absolutely no visible wear and tear on the Merry for a movie that's supposed to be happening after Skypiea and also after G8, yeah, I'm not buying it. So you know what? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do what every elitist manga purist would do and just blame the anime studio. Yep, it's Toei's fault. Usopp knowing about Luffy's 100 million berry bounty is also Toei's fault. It's just a little Easter egg, a little bit of fan service. Cut this one scene out of the movie and it changes absolutely nothing. I think I'll place the Cursed Holy Sword right before episode 135. A lot of this movie deals in Zoro's past. It will make perfect sense that upon returning to the ship after this movie, he would then start reminiscing about all the people from his past that, made him the man that he is today, doing a little bit of introspection about what it means to be a swordsman and everything after taking down one of his old friends. I recommend everybody watch that episode as well. In fact, while we're here, check out my video that I have where I go through every filler episode in One Piece and rank them from worst to best. It's super underrated. All right, another movie where we got hold on. Yo, finally, the Going Merry is showing some wear and tear. The one major narrative albatross around my neck has finally been lifted. I don't know if I can consider this a complete win because now I'm just being reminded of, the Going Merry funeral episode and it's making me sad. But this is a good thing. Because of this, we have a lot more flexibility. Again, travel time is a very real thing in the One Piece world, and hardly any of these movies last more than a day. Plenty of time where this movie can take place. Anytime between Skypiea and Long Ring Long Land and Water 7. When it comes to the anime, I feel like this could either go before or after Long Ring Long Land. Again, Toei gave them a bunch of filler. Right after the Davy Bag fight, the Straw Hats sail away. They don't immediately run into Kuzan. But for the sake of simplicity, I'll just put this right after episode 206, just before Long Ring Long Land. Instead of landing in the ocean and immediately getting hit with this tidal wave caused by some sea monkeys that eventually leads them to Long Ring Long Land, the Straw Hats instead decide to stop at a nearby quote-unquote secret resort island to hopefully enjoy some time off after this crazy battle that they had against God 10,000 meters up in the sky, right? Before they begin their search for a shipwright. Once again, Toei is helping me out here because in the anime, they land in the ocean at night, cutting away to the Doflamingo Bellamy situation on Jaya, and then cutting back to the Straw Hats the next day. Let's just say that when they cut back to them, it's 2 days later instead. Actually, this movie is amazing foreshadowing for all the tests of loyalty that the Straw Hats would have to endure in the upcoming Water 7 saga. This movie's great. Please watch it if you haven't. Speaking of foreshadowing for the Water 7 saga, did you know that this movie is the first time ever we see Gear 2 animated? It's not the full transformation, his skin doesn't turn red and everything, but for a second we do see the steam and the blood pumping throughout Luffy's body, gives him a temporary boost in power during his fight against Ratchet. It's pretty cool. It was kind of an impromptu thing, so honestly, this could be what inspires the full transformation down the road at Enies Lobby. As for where I would place this movie on the timeline, I could totally see this happening between episodes 224 and 225, after they leave the island with the memory-stealing seahorse, before they run into Foxy again and save him from a thunderstorm. If this all sounds unfamiliar to you, don't worry, it's all filler. I already know it's gonna be some people in the comments like, yo,
the title of the video is Make Every Movie Canon. Why are we talking about filler?
Look, listen! If we want to make this fit with the manga, the Going Merry was docked outside of Long Ring Long Land for about 4 days while everyone waited for Luffy and Robin to recover from Kuzan's attack, which is when eventually that giant sea frog shows up and has them almost getting hit by the sea train. Again, taking a few liberties with these ambiguous passages of time. I don't see why the crew can't just stumble across a treasure chest with a random old lady inside of it first, before they meet the Sea Frog, leading them on this whole entire side quest. We know Luffy loves his side quests. Robin isn't ever truly on edge until they run into Cypher Pole at Water 7, so that explains why she's acting so normal in this movie. And to make things even easier on me, nobody in the crew really takes any damage in this movie, no significant damage, so they could easily just continue their search for a shipwright immediately following the ending credits of this movie, where they lose the treasure that they just spent 90 minutes of all of our time looking for. Tragic. Like literally the last half of chapter 322, it could happen immediately after this. I'm not kidding. I also just realized that this would be the Going Merry's final movie. Now I'm sad again. Alright. The first canon movie written by the mangaka, the actual author of One Piece, Eiichiro Oda himself. This should be easy, right?
Wrong!
Both Frankie and Brook, and the Thousand Sunny as well, they're all making their debut on the silver screen here. So obviously this movie would need to take place post Thriller Bark, before Sabaody, obviously because the crew ends up getting separated. Again, if that was a spoiler for you, that's a damn shame. It takes them several days to reach the red line. I'm thinking this movie could happen anywhere between anime episodes 382 and 384. You could also watch this immediately following the Little East Blue arc, which is what episode, like it's in the 400s somewhere. It's during Marineford time, but I mean, still, I feel like that still takes place between Thriller Bark and Sabaody period anyway. And actually, to narrow it down even more, this will most likely happen after the Spa Island arc, which ends on episode 383, because the round rainbow that shows up at the end of that arc, it does show up in the manga before we do another fast travel thing. So this movie has two contradictions, both minor contradictions, nothing crazy, but they do have to be addressed. First, Zoro should still be hurting from the end of Thriller Bark, where, of course, nothing happened. Yet, he is fighting in this movie literally like nothing happened. Hey, I mean, it is Zoro we're talking about here. His battle against Dr. Indigo wasn't that demanding. It's not like he really does that much in this movie anyway. We could easily say that he's just fighting through the pain. The other contradiction is a little bit trickier though, is this comes from Brook. While on his knees, sulking during the Straw Hats' battle against the Flying Fish Riders just outside of Sabaody, he's going on about not wanting to be the weak link of the crew now that he's just joined and this is their first battle with them. This is a contradiction because not only does he fight with them here in this movie, he also fights with them against Doran and all of his underlings during the Spa Island filler arc that I mentioned earlier. And that's like immediately after they leave Thriller Bark. Whether it's Oda, Toei, or Brook himself, somebody lying. The script for this movie was written after that, though, the fight against the Flying Fish Riders. Oda is no stranger to retconning his own story. I feel like he could have just made a mistake. Again, it's the same thing like with the bounty gag scene from Curse Holy Sword. Like if we omit this one line from Brook's dialogue here, it doesn't change anything. This is really such an anecdotal statement. Again, minor contradiction. Shit like this is so insignificant, but I have to address it because I just know it's going to be that one person in the comments that's going to bring it up. There always is. Finally, this one is pretty straightforward. Once again, it took the Straw Hats several days to reach the red line after leaving Thriller Bark. This movie could take place at any point during that indistinct period of time between arcs. I want to say specifically at some point during chapter 490. If you want that in anime terms, then you could watch this movie either directly after or directly before episode 384. Or if you want to make it even simpler than that, this movie can happen immediately after Strong World, to be honest. It really is such a quick thing. It's just a 30-minute special episode about Luffy getting his hat stolen by this dog that ate a bird devil fruit and then chasing it down to retrieve it. It really doesn't last more than an afternoon. I don't give a damn of a reputation. The first One Piece movie post-time skip. Obviously, this movie has to take place after Fishman Island because that's the first thing the Straw Hats do immediately upon returning and gathering at Sabaody. It would also have to happen before Punk Hazard because then that's when Law and Caesar start getting involved with the crew. Against his will when it comes to Caesar. There's a small downtime sailing period between Fishman Island and Punk Hazard. And once again, Toei looking out, man. The anime makes this super easy because it has an entire filler arc literally prequeling Film Z from episode 575 to episode 578, which literally ends in Zephyr kicking off his assault on the New World, which gets addressed in his movie. A perfect segue. Why can't it always be this easy? I sure hope the last three movies are like this. Don't cry now,
してあげるからほら調子に乗れ
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to One Piece's version of The Return to Cooler. For all my non-Dragon Ball fans out there, by that I mean this movie makes no sense. The biggest problem with Film Gold is that it's canonically supposed to take place after Dressrosa, right? Gil Tesoro literally brings up Luffy toppling Doflamingo. Sabo also pulls up in this movie using the flame fruit. Except it definitely can't happen directly after Dressrosa because the entire crew doesn't get together until Wano. And because, more importantly, I guess, Kinemon should be here with the Straw Hats. At least Kinemon, maybe Kanjuro too. I thought about if this movie could potentially take place post Wano when we finally get, the entire crew all together sailing together again without any active story missions going on. But then that wouldn't work because Jinbei should be here. And also Nami wouldn't be using her old climb attack. And to make things even worse, the TV anime actually tries to make this movie canon, sorta, with a filler arc about Luffy running into this pirate that works for Tesoro. And it also involves Law and Kinemon and Bartolomeo and the rest of the Dressrosa crew because it's supposed to happen directly after they leave Dressrosa. It's basically anime canon. What is anime canon? Don't even get me started. All you need to know is that Boruto and Dragon Ball Super make my tummy hurt. As much as it hurts my pride to admit defeat, Film Gold can only feasibly take place in a what-if timeline. So that's one, I guess. Nothing crazy. I'm thinking something along the lines of, I don't know. What if the Straw Hats just don't beat Kinemon and Momonosuke at Punk Hazard? Now, I know what you're thinking. Momonosuke still needs to eat his devil fruit, right? Fake devil fruit. What if Kinemon simply just never runs into Law or actively avoids Law rescuing Momonosuke because he had help? Kanjuro is also there because he found a way to dodge getting captured at Dressrosa, right? Follow me, follow me. If they were together, it would be no problem. They are both masters of the sky. And then they can just leave Punk Hazard before the Straw Hats get there. And, they can try their hand at sailing again, only to fail again. And then the Straw Hats can just find the three of them on some other totally separate random island, one of those small islands, after Dressrosa and after this movie, which we can all just collectively assume the Grand Tesoro is somewhere around Dressrosa. Yeah, that's totally fine. Doesn't really affect the Punk Hazard arc that much. I guess the Straw Hats would just be cold. Kanjuro not being there for Dressrosa changes things a little bit because he does draw that weapon that Usopp used to knock Sugar unconscious and turn all the toys back into humans. But honestly, and this is a whole separate issue, if this was pre-time skip, Usopp wouldn't have needed Kanjuro for this anyway. He could have easily crafted his own big enough slingshot thing using his own unorthodox methods and shit, ingenuity, but I digress. Other than that, all Kinemon really did was fight against a bunch of grunts and help push back the birdcage. I guess all of those prisoners that Kanjuro helped free from the underground of Dressrosa would be fucked. But other than that, yeah, I don't think removing these two characters would really change the events of that arc all that much. And of course, Momo had already left with Nami and Sanji early on in the arc to head for Zou anyway, so him being absent doesn't matter either. Luffy definitely still needs to visit Zou, though, for a bunch of really important reasons that come later down the line. So him and Momonosuke will still meet after this movie, pulling up on him like the end of Castaway. You still with me? Raizo can still be carried away by the sea. This gives Kinemon and them a reason to still have to go to Zou, as well as the Straw Hats, because they're friends now. The entire crew all together at once this time because they never had to split up at Dressrosa. In fact, all the Straw Hats being there for Dressrosa might be another interesting what-if story. Different video for a different day. Dressrosa lasts for about a day. This movie lasts for about a day or two. The timelines still match up. Sanji, once they get to Zou, can still disappear in the middle of the night to go to his extremely politically charged wedding. Since Doflamingo was defeated, Law and Luffy could just go their separate ways immediately after Dressrosa. Law was already planning on heading to Zou anyway to reunite with Beppo and the rest of his crew. I'm sure he will want to find his own way there, especially since the Straw Hats, at this point, they still wouldn't know anything about Zou yet. But the alliance can still happen. The Ninja Pirate Mink Samurai Alliance can all still happen once the Straw Hats coincidentally also end up at Zou after, again, rescuing Momo, Kinemon, and Kanjuro. Yeah, in that vague period of time after leaving Dressrosa before stumbling across Momo, Kinemon, and Kanjuro in this timeline, that's when the events of this movie can happen. This will make it so that the events of Dressrosa can still happen, sort of close to the original story. Law would be off doing his own thing on his way to Zou or whatever. Momo, Kinemon, and Kanjuro aren't in this movie, and it makes sense because they haven't met them yet. And it also explains why the entire crew is together. All without completely derailing the entire rest of the Yonko saga. You're welcome. Okay, this right here might actually be One Piece's version of the Return to Cooler, because Stampede, compared to Film Gold, is significantly worse. This shit obliterates continuity, because on God, everybody and their mama has a cameo in this movie, yo. I'm not even lying. The biggest reason why this pirate festival cannot work in the original timeline is because it's meant to take place after Whole Cake, but before Wano. But there's no room. Not only do Luffy and Sanji have the wanted posters to prove this, Luffy's only at 1.5 bill, but the warlord system is also still very much a thing in this movie. That was abolished during Wano. And of course, Jinbei still isn't a part of the crew yet, and this literally happens during Wano. Oh yeah, and even though this is pre-Wano still, all the Straw Hats are together once again. And speaking of pirate crews splitting up, Kid and his crew also shouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? Because he and Killer should be currently imprisoned at Wano after getting packed up by Kaido. And then on top of all of this, the contradictory cherry on top of this quite frankly beautifully animated cake, the Nostra Costello, the fire tank pirate ship. This should be completely eviscerated, burned down by Big Mom and Prometheus towards the end of Whole Cake, but yet in this movie, it's in mint condition. This movie, which again, because of the bounties, is supposed to take place after the events of Whole Cake Island. Where do I even begin? I mean, I gotta use another one of my what if tokens, right? I'm just trying to figure out where. And again, without completely derailing the rest of the story, obviously. I think I want to focus on Kid. Real fans know Killer is the better character, but that's a different video. I know this is a bit of a long shot, but let me cook. What if Kid actually made a 4D chess move for once, and then immediately and recklessly attacked Kaido after he fell from a sky island trying to commit suicide? The whole reason why Kid and Killer and Hawkins and Apu were meeting at his hideout in the first place was to form this kind of alliance similar to what Luffy and Law did to take down the Yonko. Hawkins obviously made the smart decision to submit and work under Kaido. Same with Apu, instead of immediately waging war with him. What if in this timeline, Killer somehow convinces Kid, like how Zoro or Sanji or Usopp or literally anybody else on the Straw Hats, I guess, could convince Luffy to slow down and strategize for once. Just some sort of plan, right? Even if it doesn't last long. What if Kid, recognizing this as an opportunity to potentially get close to Shanks, his real target, right, agrees to temporarily go undercover as Kaido's underling alongside Apu and Hawkins, and then, you know, at some point they'll stage a coup later. Then we could just simply say that the three of them in the middle of their journey to Wano, they come across an invitation to the Pirates Festival, come across in air quotes because violence, and of course, enticed by the potential winning a free trip to Laugh Tale and effectively speed running the series, they take a quick detour and they participate in it. And then maybe you could say because they don't want news of their alliance getting out to the public, they simply act as enemies in this movie. Kid most likely isn't acting. When they eventually get to Wano, Kid, of course, will immediately try rebelling against Kaido, only to be thrown under the bus by Apu and Hawkins, for example, just saving their own asses. Kid gets packed up and thrown in Udon, and then his story can happen as it does. He meets Luffy, whatever. All right, that's that taken care of. As for why the Straw Hats are all together once again, and why Law and the Heart Pirates are here in this movie as well, since we're here, all I got for you with this is, I guess Luffy and the whole Cake crew just arrive at Wano early. Yeah, it's unclear exactly how long Zoro and the rest of the team are at Wano waiting for Luffy, but it gotta have been in like a couple of weeks, right? Long enough for them to get 9 to 5s and whole fake identities and everything. What if Luffy just shows up like a week early? You know, giving him a little extra downtime before the huge raid. There's no rush, right? Even when he gets to Wano in the real story, there's still plenty of time for him to get smacked around by Kaido, thrown in prison, learn advanced armament hockey, break out of prison, and then train some more. There's no way Luffy's sitting still for more than a minute unless he's eating or sleeping. What if Law just sends Luffy on a fake treasure hunt or something to keep him busy, right? And just, I mean, it would be funny. The crew goes with him because Luffy can't be trusted by himself. Or you can simply say that, you know, especially the people that would like see through this, like Sanji or Robin or somebody, they could just use this as an excuse to go on an adventure together as one big happy crew once again, right? How wholesome. In typical One Piece fashion, they could even stumble across a real treasure. That's when they could run into the Cider Guild. Damn! They could fight them, and that's how Luffy gets his invitation to the Pirate Festival. After hearing about this run-in with the Cider Guild, Law can, of course, do his own investigating like he is in his movie. Again, these movies rarely last more than a day or two, and there's still a bunch of time before the Fire Festival anyway. And then right after this movie, all the pirates in the Ninja Pirate Mink Samurai Alliance, I guess, they can return to Wano like nothing even happened. Real smooth. Again, Luffy shows up like a week early, so a couple more days go by. This is when Kid, Killer, Hawkins, and Apu can do their whole thing over there. Luffy, during this time, can just meet Tama and Komachiyo a different way. Still being chased by beast pirate goons, out taking a random walk or something. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. This could happen anywhere. It didn't have to happen on that beach. And then the rest of Wano can continue as it does. Am I done? As for where Beiji gets his new ship from, I mean, surely Chiffon, with her last name, has some sort of connection somewhere that can help with that, right? There's got to be a devil fruit out there that can help with that. It's not hard to get another ship. I'm moving on now. Okay. All right, we made it over the hump, boys. Now we could just coast until the finish line, you know what I'm saying? This one should be easy. Jinbei is officially a member of the crew. All right, looking nice. Luffy taps into Gear 5 for a brief moment during this final battle. Clearly after Wano, you know what I'm saying? We shouldn't have any missing crew members around this time. No extra passengers on the ship to worry about, you know what I'm saying? It took the Straw Hats a few days to reach Egghead. Mama! Oh, god damn it, bro. So yeah, the main problem with this movie is that Luffy still hasn't been officially recognized as a Yonko yet. Despite news of this and of Kaido and Big Mom's defeat already being in the newspaper before they even leave Wano. Also, Kobe is in this movie, and around this time, he should have been Blackbeard's hostage at Hachinosu after everything that happened involving them, as well as the Kuja pirates on Amazon Lily, concurrently to the events of Wano. First things first, as for Luffy's Yonko status, you know, I feel like we could just chalk this up to Oda not wanting to spoil people. Film Red came out in August of 2022. They were working on the movie for most of 2020 and 2021. Chapter 1053 dropped in June of 2022, where that huge announcement happens with Luffy becoming a Yonko. Even if Oda told Toei how Wano was going to end back in 2021, I feel like Toei just played it safe. As for why Big Mom is in this movie, well, you got me there. I guess I gotta use my final what if token on this big bit. What if Big Mom simply never tried to infiltrate Wano? I mean, it sucks for Law and Kid, I guess, because then they would never get their bounty boost. But they might still. You know, there's still plenty of Toby Roppo, CP0, for them to fight, I guess. Kaido's still going to be Kaido, so Luffy would still probably die fighting against them and attain Gear 5. And then Big Mom and her crew can just be saved for another day, I guess. Yeah. As for why Kobe's here, I mean, the only thing Kobe was really needed for during that whole Amazon Lily raid is once Blackbeard shows up, to be honest, where he tries to steal a Navy battleship with like 800 Marines on it, but then Kobe offers up his life instead as a bargaining chip. Besides that, I mean, there were a bunch of Vice Admirals there and the new Seraphim. They didn't really need Kobe to arrest Boa Hancock. Like, what was Kobe really going to do, right? So what if he was just sent to investigate Elegia instead? Then after the movie, he can read the newspaper and learn all about Blackbeard's actions on Amazon Lily. Rayleigh could still bail out the Kuja pirates, but Blackbeard could probably take the 800 Marines. Kobe can give him a little phone call on a Den Mushi. They can still work it out, you know what I'm saying? Then Garp can go save him, and it's peace. And the Straw Hats can just go to Egghead. What happens to Big Mom after all of this? Hey, man. Elbaf isn't over yet. Leave your boy a like in the comments. Tell me how you would make these canon. Tell me how wrong I am or how much you agree with me. I don't know. I read everything, even when you guys are mean to me. Oh, and let me know what I should do next.
If it's me, I apologize. I'm just high. So sometimes I'll just emphasize I'm just shy, so I really need to emphasize. At After this performance, check my vitals, make sure that I'm still alive. Cause I give it all, give it all.